I want to start with an embarrassing story about a handbag, and why, as a woman over 60, I finally understand what French women have known for decades about the difference between carrying something that needs to justify itself and carrying something that simply doesn't. The handbag in question cost $412, which I spent at a duty-free shop in Charles de Gaulle Airport. It was cognac-colored leather, quilted, with a gold tone clasp that caught the light in a way I found very convincing at 11:30 at night after 2 glasses of red wine and a 7-hour overnight flight. I had spent 2 weeks in Paris beforehand, studying how French women dressed with the kind of focused, slightly obsessive attention I would not admit to in any other context. Mental notes were taken. Actual photographs of strangers from what I considered a respectful distance were also taken. What I had concluded with considerable confidence was that what these women carried looked expensive, intentional, and entirely beyond question. So at the airport, running on almost no sleep and a café au lait I had bought 20 minutes earlier because I was too sentimental to leave France without a final one, I handed over my credit card and told myself I now understood something important. I used that bag exactly 3 times before the clasp broke. Here's what I got wrong, and what most of us get wrong, about how French women actually carry themselves. We look at the overall effect, the no-logo quietness of it, the understated quality that some people now call stealth wealth, and we assume the bag must be doing the heavy work. We assume that somewhere in the price tag is the explanation for how they look so settled, so finished, so entirely without the low-grade anxiety that follows the rest of us into rooms. But the bag is almost never the point. It's a nylon tote that folds flat into itself and weighs essentially nothing, or a soft, structured leather crossbody from a brand that has existed for under a decade and whose founders work in 3 dimensions rather than drawings because they find the concept of a flat sketch too limiting, or a hand-woven raffia basket bought at a street market in Arles that cost €50 and has been on every summer holiday since 2011. None of them have a logo you can read from 10 feet away. None of them are designer in the sense that word has been made to mean something specific. And somehow, all 3 look exactly right. The first bag is one you've almost certainly seen and quite possibly misjudged. The Longchamp Le Pliage has been in continuous production since 1993, when Philippe Cassegrain, then the head of the family-owned Longchamp company, became genuinely fascinated by origami on a business trip to Japan and came home determined to make a bag that could fold flat to nothing when it wasn't being used. He combined nylon canvas with Russia leather handles, gave it a simple trapezoidal shape modeled on the silhouette of an envelope, and released it in colors that included navy, forest green, and a particular dusty pink that makes anyone who's spent time in Paris feel a very specific kind of nostalgic. There's a footnote to the Longchamp story that I find myself thinking about more than is strictly necessary. The company started as a tobacconist. Jean Cassegrain, Philippe's father, took over his own father's traditional tobacco shop at Boulevard Poissonnière in Paris's 2nd arrondissement in 1948. He was selling pipes, cigarette cases, and smoking accessories when he began wrapping them in leather and discovered that what people actually wanted was the leather. The tobacco store became a leather goods house. The leather goods house designed a bag inspired by Japanese paper folding, and 2 billion of those bags have since been sold around the world. There's something very French about that entire trajectory, a family business that kept changing its answer to the question of what it was for and kept getting more interesting every time. The Le Pliage wasn't an immediate success either. Philippe Cassegrain later said it took about 3 years from its release before the bag caught on. 3 years of making what would eventually become one of the most replicated silhouettes in handbag history, a shape that now sits in closets in Tokyo and Melbourne and New York, alongside closets in Lyon and Bordeaux and the 16th arrondissement. The current price for a medium canvas version is around $140. A Chanel classic flap retails at somewhere around $10,000, a number that rises with pleasing regularity each season. A Bottega Veneta Jodi, which has become the benchmark for the no-logo luxury conversation, runs to roughly $3,000. The woman with the Le Pliage at the metro entrance does not appear to be aware of either comparison. She has filled her bag with something that may be an umbrella, a folded newspaper, and what appears to be a very large artichoke, and she has the general aspect of someone who made all her decisions some time ago and finds them entirely satisfactory. What makes the Le Pliage worth understanding is not the price, it is the philosophy underneath it. Philippe Cassegrain was not trying to make a status object. He was trying to solve a practical problem with enough intelligence and care that the solution would last. How do you make something that carries what you need, weighs almost nothing, survives daily use without complaint, and still looks like it belongs in your hands? The answer was to make it so honestly, confidently unpretentious that pretension became the thing that looked out of place next to it. The Le Pliage does not borrow the visual language of luxury to explain itself. It simply is what it is, and French women over 60 have understood that for 30 years. The second bag takes more attention to find, but rewards it considerably. In 2016, 3 siblings, Antoine, Mathieu, and Elsa Motet, opened a leather goods company in Paris called Polène. Their great-grandparents had founded St. James, the classic Breton label, so they were not new to French fashion. The ambition for Polène was specific: make bags that do not announce themselves. The design team does not work from drawings because the founders found drawings too flat to understand what a bag would actually be. They work from 3-dimensional microfiber prototypes, turning them by hand, adjusting them until the shape feels discovered rather than designed. The result is bags with a slight structural unexpectedness, a curve where you expected a straight edge, a proportion that is just a degree off what you would have predicted, and that registers somewhere below conscious thought as quietly interesting. Polène bags are priced between $300 and $600. They are made in Ubrique, a small town in southern Spain that also quietly produces goods sold under the names of several much larger luxury houses. Ubrique is far too professional to mention. In September of 2024, L. Catterton, a private equity firm with close ties to LVMH, took a minority stake. For the women who had been carrying these bags since the early 20s, that was neither surprising nor particularly interesting news. The other name that comes up here, reliably and correctly, is A.P.C. Jean Touitou founded it in Paris in 1987 with a stated ambition of making what he called reasonable luxury, meaning quality that was genuine and proportion that was considered, without branding as the primary feature. It belongs to the same quiet sensibility that Phoebe Philo built at Celine through the 2010s, that idea that the absence of a visible logo is itself a form of authority, not a lack of one. A.P.C. bags are plain in a way that requires confidence. The leather is good, the shapes are quiet. Nothing on the outside names itself at volume, and depending on how you have been taught to look at things, that is either a disappointment or the entire point. Every bag in this second category has made the same editorial decision. Any logo is small enough, or placed in such a way that it is functionally invisible unless you are specifically looking for it. That is not minimalism as an aesthetic choice, not exactly. It is a statement about where value actually lives. A bag that displays its own name prominently at eye level is asking the room to confirm its worth from the outside. A bag that keeps its name to itself has already answered that question internally, and French women over 60 have been buying the second kind for a very long time. Here is what is worth saying to you directly, because we are past the midpoint, and it deserves to be specific. None of what I am describing is a shopping guide, or a list of brands to go and acquire, or a philosophy to adopt wholesale from a culture that is not yours. What is actually happening in these choices is much simpler. These women, at some point in their 40s or 50s or 60s, made a decision to stop carrying something that needed to justify itself, and to start carrying something that simply functioned well and looked like it had always been there. That is a different kind of shopping. It also costs, in almost every case, considerably less than you have been led to expect. The third bag is the one that surprises people the most, which tells you something about how thoroughly we have confused elegance with formality. It is a basket, woven raffia or wicker, usually in natural straw tones, with leather or cotton handles. The price, in most cases, falls somewhere between 50 and 200 euros. You can find one at any brocante in provincial France, at a Saturday morning market in Aix-en-Provence, or from Cézanne. Cézanne is a Paris label founded in 2013 by Morgane Cézalori from an apartment on the Rue Charlot in the 3rd arrondissement. It started as an online vintage resale shop and grew into one of the more considered French fashion brands of the last 15 years, partly because Cézalori understood early that the women she was designing for wanted things that felt genuinely personal rather than aspirationally borrowed. Their Justine basket, a hand-woven raffia tote, restocks every spring and sells out on a schedule so predictable that the company built a waiting list notification system around it. For a bag made of woven grass with leather handles, that is an extraordinary situation, and I find myself thinking about it with real pleasure. The basket's seasonal in France the way a ripe tomato is seasonal, not because the rules forbid it in other months, but because it's only fully itself in summer. It comes out in May. It holds keys, a small wallet, a phone, a pair of sunglasses, and on Saturday mornings at the Marché d'Aligre, in Paris's 12th arrondissement, just east of the Bastille, some radishes and a small wheel of cheese wrapped in paper. French women carry it loosely, one handle sliding from the shoulder or the whole thing swinging from one hand while the other arm stays free, which is the bag equivalent of walking with your hands in your pockets. Casual in a way that required absolutely no effort to achieve and a quiet lifetime of confidence to carry off. Inès de la Fressange, who has been the clearest living definition of this particular kind of French style for 40 years now, has been photographed with a version of this basket more times than anyone has thought to count. That's not a coincidence. It's the same answer to the same question, arrived at by the same route. The three bags, taken together, describe the same position in three different registers. The Le Pliage says, "I have places to go, and a bag that folds is a bag that is ready." The structured leather bag says, "I chose this because I wanted to carry it, not because I needed someone else to recognize it." The basket says, "It is warm, I am walking somewhere pleasant, and the whole point is the light." None of them say, in any register, "Please notice what this cost." Which brings me back to the bag at the bottom of my wardrobe. The cognac leather one from Charles de Gaulle Airport, the one I bought at midnight because I was convinced I had finally understood something. A cobbler near my house repaired the clasp for $22. Then it broke again, which I have come to accept as the bag's honest verdict on the whole situation. What I carry now is a Le Pliage in dark green that has been with me for 9 years, including 11 countries, one encounter with a leaking bottle of olive oil in an Italian supermarket I prefer not to dwell on, and a 3-hour delay at Vienna Airport during which it served, with a small amount of reorganization, as a more than adequate pillow. It cost $135. It folds to the size of a paperback, and it has been to every market I have visited and every flight I have taken and every afternoon I have spent somewhere I wanted to be. I have never once needed to explain it to anyone.